Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. This is going to be my review for the King's weapon and the buckle. This can be bought in several different ways. Like, you can buy all these individually. You can buy the King's weapon, you can buy the buckle, and you can buy the changer, or you can buy them all as one set. I'm just reviewing these two together because the buckle, there's really not a whole lot to go over. It would amount to like a 2-minute review. So I'm going to cover that real quick at the beginning just to get it out of the way, and then we'll go over the King's weapon. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. And the buckle is basically your standard type of buckle, nothing too big to write home about. Basic belt here. You have the basic buckle. The only thing that is different is this one isn't touting the ability to store some sort of gimmick, so it's really rather basic. It's just the silver plate. I mean, it looks cool and sleek and basic, but it's like a little bit cheap looking, but it looks cool for what it is in terms of the core design. Like, I appreciate the simplicity of it. The cool thing about it, though, is the idea of it is actually as a cell phone type device. You can see like the camera there, and you just pop this out right here, and it has like a little cell phone. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. You can see it's just a sticker, so it doesn't do anything. I think this is a huge missed opportunity. It's just basically this cheap little bit here, but this could have been actually a pretty cool toy, in my opinion. If it had been a full functioning little role play thing, pulling this out and having maybe some sounds and stuff, it actually could have been a pretty cool toy. I guess I think they probably didn't do it because, you're having the changer and then this come out. So, thank you, spoiler alert. But you know what I mean. So you have that, and they probably wouldn't want another, like, higher-end expensive toy coming out at the same time. But I think that would be something to be considered for the future. I think that'd be kind of cool. It'd be very Rider Belt-esque. The only other thing neat worth noting for this is you have this bit here, and you can turn this around, is it holds the sword. There you go, it acts as a holder for the sword. So that's neat. So you can kind of have it on display like that, or, if you're like role-playing or whatever and you put it on there. I don't know why I'm keeping the sword in here. You're not part of this. She doesn't even go here. And now for the quote-unquote main event. This is the King's weapon, which is obviously a large-scale shield-esque weapon in the show. Obviously a lot smaller, your classic Toku weapon fare. I mean, it fits in the palm of your hand, which is to be expected. I mean, obviously because it's for kids and, they're going to also want to keep costs down. It would make a rather cool-looking, larger-scale weapon, and I wish it was a little bit larger. Because as you just saw with the sword, it's classic Toku size as well, but it's also not that bad, and this is pretty small. I will say, just in terms of the design in the show, I like the way it looks. It looks pretty cool with the symbol and the gold and the silver, and like just in terms of like a really small display piece, it looks, okay enough. There's a lot of the formations that have this popping out, but it does not pop out, which is really weird. But basically, it kind of functions in a way like the old Trans Dagger from Lost Galaxy, where it had multiple different forms. At least that's the idea. Unfortunately, is not as exciting. I think the forms look cooler in the show, but the toy leaves a lot to be desired. But let's go ahead and go over it. I mean, right here, you can just have, this is blaster mode. Ready? I'm going to transform it. There we go. There's a blaster mode. Blasting noises. Kind of cool, 90s sounding jingle. And obviously this is just like a shield. And then right here, all the transformations after this are basically done with these little bits here. So you have the quote-unquote sickle mode, which doesn't activate any new sounds that are different. There is a second sound. There's basically sounds for projectile blasts and sounds for hand-to-hand combat, but there's not individual sounds for all the modes. And then this mode is the bowcaster mode. Again, you get the same sounds. It's all housed in there. And then this weird mode, I think, is the lamest one in terms of transformation, is where you just put these down, and you don't put them back all the way, and you have this claw mode. Like, the design isn't bad, like, it looks kind of cool, but I mean, in terms of transformation, it's like, okay, what's the next one, guys? It's like, what if we didn't fold them all the way in and they just stuck out? Like, brilliant, Johnson. You just came up with another mode, but that's meant to be another mode. And then you have the sword mode, and sorry about that. And you activate that by pulling these all the way up. And if you haven't been seeing, you press these in to activate this so that they're easy to move around. See, it locks in place, then you press it, and then up. And then there is the sword mode. And then you can combine it with the other sword, which I will show in just a second. But just to show off the other sounds, here's the button for the melee for this sword. And then that's meant to be, the slash noises. And then here at the bottom, you can see there's a port where you can plug in the henshin device, and then you get this larger scale weapon, which is a larger size, and obviously is probably another reason they kept it a certain scale, because they had to scale it with this to a degree. But this at least feels a little bit more impressive and cool. It doesn't activate any new sounds for either of them, but at least like if you're getting both of these as a completionist, this is probably the biggest benefit, is this can look rather impressive on the shelf like this, and it's neat to have that functionality. But like overall, I mean, the buckle, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you really want something to store your sword, if you're doing like a cheap cosplay or something. The only way I can recommend it is if you really like the design and you see it go on clearance. I totally see this being a clearance type of deal. Again, missed opportunity for a cooler toy. I think that they should keep something like that in mind, and I think something in the future that was effectively like a rider belt for Sentai could be kind of cool. As far as this goes, also, it's not the worst, but it's definitely not all that great. I love the idea of a transforming ranger weapon, you know, like the trans dagger. I think that's really cool, and I think they look pretty decent in the show, but the toy, if we're being honest, is rather lame. I mean, all your transformations is coming from just moving around these like hands of a clock, which is just honestly really boring. There's some like mild cleverness to certain parts, but for the most part, it's a really boring toy. Like, I think even kids would get bored with it. Like, just comparing this to like something like the trans dagger is so much more fun to mess around with, I think, for a kid and even a collector. So this is another one I can't really recommend unless you really want it as a completionist, or you're just a huge King-ohger fan. In that case, again, I would wait for a sale. I get a feeling both of these are going to be sale material, especially once people see reviews and get a vibe for what they like, or what they're like. But that's it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for all my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.